It's starting. All right, we are live. Welcome to the Change My View podcast. It is March 9th, 2019. And we have our guest here today is username spelled like EYE, create2, T-O-O. But she's asked us to call her Aisha, and welcome to the podcast, Aisha.
Thanks so much. So happy to be here.
Right on. Thank you very much for coming. So Aisha posted in the last few weeks. This was 2 months ago, just about. And because we're doing sort of a bulk recording this weekend of all the people who had replied, her post I thought was relevant to what we're doing and interesting and different from some of the others we've done. So we just interesting for many reasons. But Aisha, please say hello, introduce yourself, tell us anything you want.
Hi. So I'm Aisha Iqbal, and this was actually my first time ever using Change My View on Reddit, and even being on Reddit for that matter. So it was a scary, initially scary, but an extremely valuable experience for me. And then when I got the email from you, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is another kind of different realm that I haven't been in. So currently I'm a published author. I'm on my way to becoming a motivational speaker on a larger platform. So that's why I came to Change My View to help me understand a bit more about the topic that I wanted to go out into the world with.
Excellent. And so 2 questions right away. How did you find Reddit? Was it related to what ended up being a part of your post, which we'll get into in a bit, or was it unconnected?
It was actually, it was recommended to me by a coach that I was working with. And he said, you know what, to really figure out what the message needs to be for the people that you're trying to reach out to, you need to go to Change My View. That is going to be one of the best forums, better than like a Facebook or any other social media platform can provide.
That's cool. Okay, we'll come right back to that, but I want to give you a chance to give us a little bit of context here before I dive deeper on that part, because that's sort of a unique, I haven't heard that as a recommendation given before. That's actually kind of very cool.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I was in their toolbox thinking, it'd be good to Change My View. I'm going to send them to that. Like a professional has recommended our subreddit, which is very cool and somewhat, I guess, adult and serious. So, okay. Okay, so would you please just let's right now would be a good window, I think, to briefly go over your posts. So if you wouldn't mind, just read the title, and then I'll ask you a quick question after that, and then we'll go into the text of your post. Is that cool?
It is. So let me get into, what was the exact title? It was Single Mothers Should Not Be Stigmatized Based on Social Expectations of What a Traditional Family Should Be for Raising Children.
Great. Okay. And so, as always, like we ask, you can reveal as little or as much as you want. We always respect privacy, but anything you'd like to tell us about what was happening in your world when you posted this, but also what were you feeling about, like what was going on? Were you in any way upset by the situation, or what were your emotions? What were you thinking? Just what was going on with you? Like what
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So specifically at that time, this was very much a research endeavor. I was preparing. I was actually in the process of researching and exploring and preparing a talk pitch. So this will become a future TEDx talk that I will deliver. Mm-hmm. And so I was preparing the pitch for that. And part of that was, okay, what is this topic? How should I approach this topic? Because let me back up a little bit. I am a single mother. I have been for the past 2 years. And through that, my experience has been, positive, negative, hard, enlightening, empowering, shameful, all of that. And so I was speaking, this talk is very much based out of my own experiences, but it's also kind of trying to be a voice for other single mothers who I am not like, because single motherhood comes in very different flavors, and I'm just one flavor of it. But by and large, I do believe that no matter what flavor the single mother comes in, it's just hard. It's just hard raising a child by yourself. And so the initial approach that I was taking was going to be very declarative, like stop stigmatizing single mothers. And long story short, my experience with Change My View, it really helped me pivot from that to being, having such a strong message like stop stigmatizing to then, hey, let's start supporting more. Because it was through the discussions that I had on Change My View that helped me understand how to better approach people with a better message on this topic.
All right. So who, going back to just a little what you're saying, like who was doing the stigmatizing? Like who in your world was giving you unjustified crap? Like who's coming at you?
I mean, they were from overt crap from
Like what's an
people.
example? Like I'm not a parent. I won't be a mother. Like what is it really like to? Are they subtle cues? Are they blatant? What are the things? Like what
Sure.
just for someone like me who doesn't know how it is to step into those shoes very easily, because it's in many ways so far from my world, but I want to like understand what the inside view of that is like for you.
Absolutely. So I am an American Pakistani woman. So I come from a South Asian culture, Muslim culture, where, this is kind of taboo. Being unmarried is, you just don't do that. You get married, you have kids. Even in this day and age, if a woman becomes divorced, or if she is a single mother for whatever reason, people just don't talk about it. The culture is just to be silent, either until the mother remarries and then she can be then part of society again, or we just stay quiet about her. We don't really talk about her.
So you would like not get invited to family gatherings, that sort of thing?
Stuff like that. Yeah.
You'd get like blacklisted from like I guess
It was uncomfortable for people. It's uncomfortable for people
just to be in the room with you. Just have a
just
pleasant conversation about the sports game or
unless I wouldn't say it was that bad, but
okay.
if I brought that up, it needed to be under the guise of, okay, is there a man in your life? Is there a man in your child's life? So subtle things
You
like
were getting
that,
asked
overt
about it
things
all
like
the time.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it would force me into a conversation like, do I need to lie about this? Or how do
Oh,
I?
right.
And so it wasn't necessarily for my comfort, but it was for their comfort. And then a
Yeah.
more overt, and again, this was from a well-intentioned person, was after they found out that, I told them I was pregnant, they knew my background, they were like, oh, well, why don't you give your baby to us? And I
They
was just
said,
like,
give your baby to us?
yes.
Oh, oh no. Okay, sorry, that is yeah. All right.
So things like that. Maybe not everyone goes through that, but it's that I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how people think of it. Like they
Well, can I
immediately,
try and add a lens to it? Just that is the
yeah.
in my mind where I go to try and dial in as well as I can is when I think of the stories my parents would tell about when they were growing up. So this would have been like in the 50s and the 60s into the 70s within a pretty conservative Catholic community in Southern California. And I feel like they might have gotten like half of what you're getting. Not that they were married, but I mean, the attitude in that culture to things like this, I think at the time was also is very different than the Catholic culture I grew up in like the 90s, 80s. But
Yeah.
I guess it could be for those with maybe a Christian background might find an analog there in some ways, but to how it might have been 40 years ago or something like that, or in some places still now. But yeah.
I mean, and that's what's surprising, right? Because we think that these beliefs are kind of old school. Like, nowadays people are thinking differently about single motherhood, a little bit more open-mindedly. But through my work, through the conversations that I had on Change My View, and because then I turned this into a blog post and then it was shared out on Facebook. And some of the comments that we get still, like even in my Change My View discussion, people, oh my gosh, I was called a child abuser. Someone on Change My View said that I was willfully abusing my child by keeping them in a single parent home.
Wow. Okay. Is it like of statistics of like 100,000 people, like they're 5% like less likely to go to college or something like that sort of thing, and
I mean,
therefore or something like
let's be honest, the statistics out there about single motherhood are dire. They are depressing.
Well, because
They
it's hard,
are,
right?
you
It's
know,
like super hard, like
they're
to be
really
a single
hard.
mother, right?
Right. And so at first, because I'm an analyst, I'm a data analyst by day. So
Yeah,
my
which
job
is
is to
awesome.
kind of scrutinize kind of data points, right? Is to
Hmm.
question data that we get. So when I first started looking into this and I saw all these statistics, my first reaction was, this can't all be true. I can't trust all these numbers. Let me try to figure out. I was trying to debunk them.
Yeah.
But then through this process, and especially through what I learned from Change My View, it is hard to debunk statistics. It is even harder to get people to believe anything other than
Hmm.
those statistics.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because it's almost just like it's turned into a social truth. Like, no, there are volumes of data points out there
Hmm.
that basically says that single mothers are shit. And we should absolutely not have that in our society. And
Well,
people
okay.
hold on to that for dear life.
See, this is where I'm more with Hume and saying like it is not necessarily an ought, and what I mean to say is like when I look at that data, I'm like, yeah, the outcomes might not be as good because it's super hard to be a single mother. Like you're dealing with someone who's like sleep deprived, like right, like I mean, probably less money, like, and so you're representing an ideal case in a sense of a single mother, right? So like you would hope those around you would factor in like, oh, but she's clearly has a professional job, she's succeeding, like doing this fancy data analysis job, like okay, of
Right.
all the
But
single mothers
but
out there,
even
she's an
those
ideal case.
things,
Like
yeah.
why is it our business to
But
get into her
even
world?
those
Yeah.
things, even my graduate degree from Georgetown does not give me immunity from these types of views from people, right? And and even to your point, and thank you for bringing that human lens to it. It's I then even started going deeper into the data, asking bigger questions like, okay, if single mothers are more likely to be poor, is it because the gender wage gap is even more pronounced in that
Oh,
structure?
interesting.
Because
Okay.
it is a woman and it is a single income. And if the single woman is a colored woman, the gender wage gap is even bigger
Hmm.
for colored women than it is for non. And so I started drilling into that. And then if there was a statistic around, children from fatherless homes are more likely to be XYZ, then
Hmm.
I would start asking, where are the dads? Are they there because they don't want to be there, or are they mentally unstable, or are they in jail? And if this is a colored family, is a father in jail? What's the higher likelihood of the father being in jail because he's colored? And then it just led me to bigger things like, could it be because of the racial discrimination in the criminal justice system in the U.S.? So kind of bigger societal factors could possibly be in play here, and it's not simply just all on the shoulders of the single mother.
Awesomely put together. I one thought just going into that and thinking about the last few minutes, it was like you're in a world of professional data analysis, right? And applying that to this question, that this problem you're having, this whole conversation we're having. And so, for instance, they're looking at the data and saying, okay, let's say they see that single mothers' children have less chance of graduating college. Um,
Yep.
they're seeing a data point, and then they're turning that into uh, an ought, right? Like a shouldness of you should not be a single mother or whatever, right? Or you should let us take your baby, like the Titanic sinking, and you better hand it off, right? Like,
Here you go.
apologies to any Titanic or Lusitania survivors who are listening. But so like, but they've also like smuggled in with that should is they're saying there's a causal relationship. They're saying like single mothers are like not doing what they need to, they're bad, therefore this, right? So
Yes.
there's like three steps there. There's like the data, there's like the implied causal thing that comes with the should that follows, right? So like you glance past a couple of issues that are like super, I think, interesting and hot button, and which are related to pay gaps and different interpretations of where that comes from. And we're also on the topic of single motherhood, which like depending on which point of view different people are coming from. And by the way, I don't know what causes the pay wage gap, and I'm not going to begin to try and explain it. So I'm not taking a
Right.
position anywhere on this, but I've heard different arguments about like people saying, well, it's part of it is men, I don't know, because men can't have babies, they're more likely to invest more time in pure careerism or not, or like all these other causal factors. So in what you're saying, like is there any other reflections on that and those chains of causation, and when multiple elements of potential discrimination start to pile up on each other, like how they become more difficult, and what part of that is outright versus like subconscious, either genderism or racism or whatever? And I just want to open the door to anything else you want to get into on that topic and leave it at that. Yeah.
It was like, this was also the challenge in the actual CMB forum too, right? Because this is ripe for discussion, and this is ripe for several tangents in different ways, right? Because I remember even bringing up the wage gap supposition in the discussion, and I think one person said, "Well, women are paid less because their work is less valuable, and they're going to be spending less time in the workforce." And I was like, "Okay, that's great. So you're telling me that a woman who first gets in, starts her career, she's already getting paid less because of the assumption that she's going to start a family, but what if she's not?"
Like the liability, like she's got a 20% chance of having kids versus a 0% chance.
Yeah. So, and then through that experience, through kind of like getting into a little bit of the debate, again, what I was finding was, Aisha, getting too far away from your goal. And my ultimate goal was to empathize with the single mother, that it is just hard, and that we collectively as society, are responsible for helping her raise this future generation. It's not enough to say, oh, well, she had the baby, they need to figure it out. Like, these kids who are, increasingly becoming a higher percentage of the population, they're going to be our next generation of whatever, teachers, firefighters. We can either give them the opportunity to be those other higher involved people in the society, or we can help them get right into jail, right? If we're going to assume that they're criminals, treat them like criminals, then what is going to happen? So it was trying to balance what my goal is with what my brain was saying about the responses that was coming. That was like super challenging.
Wait, hold on. Can I say that aloud again? You said, I'm having trouble balancing my goal with what my brain is saying. That has so many layers. Like, I want to go for an hour into Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung and like Carl Rogers and that. Okay, I'm having trouble aligning my goals with what my brain is saying. That's great. I'm not even going to comment. I'm just going to let that sit there on the shelf. That's awesome.
I don't know how else to say it, because part of the forum is that you have to dedicate 3 hours, right, minimum, to engage after you post. And so I posted first thing in the morning. So I'm at work, and it was one of those lighter days at work. And I was just like, okay, I'm already feeling anxious because I know what a hot button topic this was. I didn't know what to expect. I'm not great with confrontation. So all of these things, but I was just like, nope, I have to do this. I'm going to learn a lot. So in those 3 hours, anytime there was a response, like, I had to take a breath. I had to pause. And there were several times in the conversation where I actually said that, I think I brought up abortion. I was just like, I'm only bringing this up as an example, but this is not going to be part of this discussion. We are not here to discuss this topic.
I see it right here. Yeah. This is not the place to debate abortion. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had to do that a couple of times, and I think one of the users who was debating, they actually set aside and they were like, "Hey, I want to say that you're doing a really good job at this. It's something that I want to work on for myself," and that bolstered me through the experience. Like, phew, okay, I am able to balance like my brain and my goals a little bit.
That is user bjankles. This is a side note, but I want to say that I really respect your ability to stay focused on the issue rather at hand and opening a can of worms. For anyone listening who likes Change My View, that is exemplary user behavior, and it's low enough down that not being like you're supposed to sort of counter people's views, but it's down in the conversation to a point it's not a problem. Like, that's anyone listening, that's how you change my view. Like, that's nice. That was nice. Good user behavior. Thank you, community member bjankles, for being awesome. Just I wanted to get that out. But I didn't. Sorry if I interrupted.
No. And thank you, for finding that spot, because bjankles, thank you. That was amazing. It made the whole experience that much more pleasant for me, and I needed it at that time.
And I was just trying to copy the link, and I almost hit remove. Like that would be so bad if people went looking. They're like, "Oh no." Okay, so we'll get that on the show notes later. Okay, so what we haven't done, and we've gone far deep into this before we've even done the opening part that we're supposed to do. So would you mind, in your own voice, just saying the title one more time, and then reading because it's short enough here, just reading the text of your post just at the top.
Sorry, Michael, I didn't get that last part.
Okay. Would you mind just like reading at the top of the post, the title again, and then the full text of what you posted, just so it's in your own voice. And so if we have any back and forth later, like anytime we're reading your thing, it's better for you to say it because it's in your voice. And then I can read any replies that we go over later. But for now, if you just read the title and the intro text, yeah. Oh, are you losing audio there again?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, let me check my connection real quick and just to see how the speed is.
Okay.
And all right, my connection's pretty strong. How are things looking on your end?
They seem to be fine.
Okay, maybe we'll just give it another try here. Okay, so Aisha is gonna, if we can keep the connection going strongly, read her post.
Sure. Let me load it up.
And sorry, I usually prep for this, so I meant to tell you before that we would do this, but my mistake.
No problem.
I usually say that before it starts, and I forgot to this time. So.
Okay, so the title of the post is "Single Mothers Should Not Be Stigmatized Based on Social Expectations of What a Traditional Family Should Be for Raising Children." If simple human decency isn't a good enough reason, I think at minimum, the way we treat single mothers should be based on relevant data and not irrelevant social expectations. For years, the general narrative has been that single mothers are a drain on society, i.e., uneducated, poor, depend on government assistance, and are raising children that will also be burdens on society, i.e., lack of two-parent stability leads to deep behavioral issues well into adulthood. This just isn't true. I myself am a single mother by choice, becoming increasingly more popular amongst educated and financially stable women over the past few years. Very well educated, a graduate degree holder, make really good money in the SF tech industry, contributor to the growth of my community by outsourcing many aspects of my life, groceries, laundry, house cleaning, childcare, etc. A mentor to many young women in the tech space, so my daughter is in great hands. I know quite a few single mothers who also fit this mold. But this hasn't stopped people from, one, offering to buy my baby off of me since they know my family won't accept my lifestyle choice. Two, berating me at work for leaving a meeting early to meet my childcare obligations. Three, looking down upon me for being a single income household by married women in dual income households. Four, telling me that I need to date and find a man to help support me. I think there's absolutely no reason why the traditional nuclear family is inherently better for raising children. Please change my view.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. And thank you for going through that formality on the spot there. Wow. You know what? I don't know why this didn't occur to me till now, but the offering to buy my baby, I sounded like sort of an offered adoption before, that they were like, we'll give you cash for that kid. Like for real?
It was an interesting conversation. Again, it was well intended, and it was just, what made it suck more was because this was early on in my pregnancy, and I was already feeling a type of way. I was already scared. I was already hesitant and stressed, and so I thought that I was sharing news with well-wishers, which they were. But I did not imagine that the conversation was going to go that way. So when it started, I have to imagine that I was physically shocked. Like my face had to have been saying
Oh
something.
man, yeah.
But then hearing things like, oh, we'll put her in the best private schools, and and then immediately my mind is saying, so you're assuming that I can't do that for my own daughter. It was an emotionally charged moment for me.
Yeah.
Because I remember going home afterwards, after leaving that conversation, and I was bawling, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I am so
Sure.
sorry
Yeah.
that I did this. I hope that there are no bad juju's coming my way because of this." It was
Mhm.
it was tough.
Especially that early on with a big life choice like that, having just wow. The number two, they're berating me at work is another thing that jumped out. Was just so, at least, and maybe I've just worked at nice places or something, but like the number of times I've seen berating itself is like three maybe, but also there are jerks out there. Like, what was the berating? Like, so you like there was a meeting and you're like, guys, I got to go early to like do kid related things, and they're like, ah, like,
It See, and this is probably more. It's tough being a mother in the workplace.
mhm,
And whether you're in a dual parent household or a single parent household, being a working mother is tough. And I'm in
oh
the
yeah,
advertising agency,
mhm,
so in that industry where it is known for people to work, anywhere 60 to 80 hours a week. I think, that's
yeah,
normal.
like very high
Yeah,
A type sort of office, yeah,
right. And
high
so
strung, yeah,
and you're expected to kind of go to happy hours with your team. You're expected to stay late with your team. But after becoming a mother, I was just like, I would rather go home and hang out with my little one.
yeah,
And so having to balance that with kind of people scheduling meetings late, or being able to tell them, because this was the first job I had after becoming a mother, because I was laid off while I was 6 months pregnant.
mhm,
So it's not like I went back to a job that I already had, where I already had kind of
I see, yeah,
camaraderie or some kind of equity already in place. This
mhm,
was a brand new company, brand new role, brand new job. And so I remember those first few months were scary for me, because I'm I was
yeah,
already coming from a place of, I mean, my earlier years, low confidence, low self-esteem. And so now coming into a place, I was already filled with anxiety. Like, okay, I need to prove myself in this role. I need to, because it was an elevated role. So
yeah,
um, it was a vertical move for me. So I had to prove myself in this new company. But at the same time, if I didn't create that balance for myself, like that balance at home for my child, no one else would. No one else at work or anywhere else would be like, Aish, I think it's time for you to go home so you can be with your baby. I had to do that for
no one
myself.
did that, no. Surprised to hear that in the tech industry and advertising.
um, so yeah, I think it's that work example, that work experience. I think a lot of mothers face that, but then it's harder for being a single parent, because you don't have that backup. I mean, I have a nanny at home, but I would have to
Mhm,
pay more for her. So it's there's that balance. Like, okay, I need to keep my hustle alive. I need to keep making more money so I can have like appropriate childcare.
of course, yeah,
Um, but then for the women that can't, and
mhm.
don't have that option, I can only imagine that it's even harder.
Yeah, brutal, I imagine. Yeah. Well, just one thing we haven't touched on at all at this point is anything below the original post here, the actual conversation. Well, we touched in a little bit on avoiding the abortion topic there, but was there anything in this conversation in particular you wanted to also bring up, and or any deltas given you want to talk about?
Um, I remember I awarded a Delta uh, for this one person, and I'm forgetting the username, but they asked, like, okay, it seems like, what is it going to take to change your view exactly?
Mhm.
Because um, there wasn't, I don't think during the conversation I ever said, oh, yeah, okay, I completely agree with that. And I
Mhm.
awarded that person the Delta because in that that clicked for me that, okay, I haven't changed my view on this topic, but what I have learned is the way I'm approaching this is not the most conducive approach.
And I feel like this informs a little bit of what you've been talking about as far as a change and how that's going to affect your this talk that you're working up to right now.
Yep. That's exactly right. So instead of, because when you just had me reread my post, it made me cringe a little. I'm like, whoa, okay, that's kind of not, because right up front, when I state that, these expectations should be based on relevant data. What I learned in the post is that the people who were citing the statistics and data points, that was relevant for them to this topic. So it was going to be a bigger fight for me to fight the data points rather than the other side of it, where like, okay, let's accept the data that we see, right? Let's accept all the dire statistics out there. But instead of using shame or having a negative attitude towards them, let's be a little bit more empathetic and let's be a little bit more supportive. And so I think that was that realization helps me craft a better message.
All right. And that'll, get through to more people. Just, you feel,
I think so. Yeah, because also part of this was, because I think also part of this process was when I was speaking to people, not a lot of people think that they shame single moms. It was going to be very easy for them to say, oh yeah, you're right, those people do it, not me. But if I come with a message like, hey, let's do more to support, let's do more to empower, that's then also addressing those people who already think that they support single mothers, or more importantly, don't shame them.
Something that comes to mind about this is like, we all have older family members or things, and this is speaking to sort of the listening audience as well, that may have older generational views that like, we're like, whoa, okay, really? Did you go there? And at times, we all, I think, struggle between what we feel is the moral values of our time, and also like, oh, that's, aunt or uncle or grandma, grandpa, so-and-so, right? And like trying to understand, like you had mentioned something earlier about well-meaning. You said they're well-meaning. Like let's get into just a little bit of like where you think they're coming from and what is the wellness that they mean, and then what's the mistake that they're making from your view of, I guess, either in what they mean is good as the conclusion and or their ideas that you don't like as far as how it's getting to that goal, right?
Right. So let's start with what I meant or what I mean by well-intentioned. They thought that they were helping me as well. Right? They were trying to fill a need on their end, clearly. They wanted this child for whatever reasons they did. And so they thought it was going to be mutually beneficial for us that, hey, this way she doesn't have to be a single mother. She, we can care for the baby. We can have the baby. And so I think from a human perspective, they thought that they were also going to help me. The mistake that was made is the underlying assumption in that was that I didn't want the baby, that because of the hardships that I was going through or I was going to go through, I was not going to want to be a mother to this child. I think that was the underlying assumption. It had to be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of well-intentioned people do. I mean, even myself, it's that gap between intent and impact. What is the intention that you had before you said something, before you did something? And then what is the impact that it had? And then you measure that gap. The bigger that gap, the better job you need to do to communicate your intent. The smaller the gap, the better job you already are doing communicating your intent. That's how I see it.
How does that gap relate to the gap between what you want and what your brain's telling you?
Oh my gosh. What I want was to have a message that would resonate, that would share kind of the hardships of the single mother and get people to support. My brain during this exercise was, the F did this person just say to me? What did this person just call me? They don't know me like that. They don't know anything about me. How dare they? You know, that was the ego speaking.
Right.
Where I think that goal was coming from a bigger place. And so I think that's what that gap was. And during the time that I was engaging with the post, it was a constant struggle. Like, let me keep that gap small. Let me make sure I don't veer too far off. And I think there are certain points where I started getting a little bit further away from my actual goal, and I had to reel myself back in.
So what is this this speech going to be about ultimately? I mean, I know we got some clues here, but or is that you keeping your cards close to the chest?
No, not at all, not at all. I've actually turned this into a blog post where it's ultimately right. Let's do more to support and empower the single mother. And I think it's really as simple as that, because at first, you know, being this day and age, I was thinking, you know what, maybe I don't need to talk about this. Maybe things have become better for single moms, and it's not important. But then through this exercise and through reading on single mother forums, like things that are still happening, they're still happening now. There's still a lot of pain in this community. And ultimately, I think my larger goal is to empower women and to empower girls. And I think that the single mother as a focal point kind of channels all of that. There's woman, these are women that are not empowered. There's a lot of shame that they in themselves take, and then it's transported into the children as they grow up. So it's just, there's a lot in here, and I think that's why that topic of the single mother is so important to me.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll definitely I'll get that blog post put from you after we wind down later. Make sure that's in the show notes if that's all right. And I just wanted to get down a little bit more into the comments here and see. So the delta you gave was essentially had to do with that gap and had to do with, you know, shifting kind of your internal compass about where are we headed with this conversation, right? Like, I'm feeling this way about it, but like, how can I channel this? You know, I've got gasoline burning here, but maybe I can find an engine to put it into and do some work with this, right?
Yes.
And I stole that analogy, I think, from Robert McKee, but it's a useful one. And so, was there anything anyone said to you that like really fought that good progress, that like pushed you back to make you like away from progress? Like any comments that really just were not constructive? That
there was one early on where, and I think I addressed it too, where it seemed like they were saying that shame is an effective tool to change a behavior in society.
Yeah.
And again, and for me, I was just like, I have my own thoughts on that, but that's a separate discussion, which we are not going to have here.
Yeah.
Because I do not think shame is an effective tool, but that in itself is a separate debate. So that started me down that path where, okay, this could take a turn quickly for an unproductive conversation. And then another one was when we started getting comments like, you know, that person calling me a child abuser. And then there was another one that I actually reported, and I don't remember. And then I think that comment also got deleted, but I only had one of those. And I say only because I think for a topic like this, it is rife for people to come with a lot of seemingly hateful views. But that also very quickly, I had to reel myself in and reread the forum rules. Like, okay, I don't even need to engage with this person. I can just report them, and they will be removed from the discussion. So that was really helpful because that happened pretty quickly.
Let's see. And I'm just looking at it now, and I'm reading. So they're removed posts. Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's definitely beyond the rules and ad hominem for sure. So attacking you and not the argument. So that's not a specific rule break, but it gets into fuzzier territory. But yes, that appears to be a good call here on what I'm looking at. So And you know, you did the right thing to report what you thought was outside the bounds of the thing. And most of all, I appreciate you actually doing the research to see if it was, because, you know, part of your head was like, well, maybe they allow this here, you know, like, and so, you know, thanks for checking first. And yeah, like best practices. Excellent.
Yeah, no, thank you. Because
yeah.
it was my first time, I was just like, I want to make sure I'm doing this right.
Yeah. And oh wow, yeah, okay, yeah, narcissistic rage. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So I guess they're able to read your mind, so that's cool. Oh, I have a
Yeah.
feeling I might see Pepperoni's name there. Okay, cool. Not to the comment, but she's moderating in that. So yeah, so there, like, we've got a pretty diverse audience of opinions, and obviously there's people listening to this who are going to disagree with some of your conclusions and some of your premises
Right.
also. So with, you know, with them in mind, and without me just specifically pointing it, like, I mean, I don't know, like a classic go-to for almost any topic here is going to be like the, you know, pure 100% libertarian thing of like, you know, taxes are theft and it's not the government's place to do anything I don't say, right? Like, like just to generally speak to that, because it's almost like something you could apply to any topic, but like, what is your response to that community in terms of like, well, why is it, I guess, you know, why is my money should be spent on your kid, I guess, is the short answer. And maybe this speaks more to, you know, single mothers of, you know, struggling more financially or whatever, but just, I know that voice is there, and I think it would be good to say something to it, I guess. That's all. Yeah.
That's an interesting, it's an interesting question. And it's, I guess I see it in a way where you don't have to give your money to these kids, but don't disproportionately keep it away from them either. Like if married couples are getting benefits because of the sheer fact that they're married, I think that's where the inequality comes in. Because then, you know, the single mothers won't get that benefit, or not at the same rate. So it's almost just like there is more benefit. There is a tax benefit of being married. Whereas being a single parent, it's not. So it's not give these kids more money, but don't disproportionately keep it away from them either.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on about closer to an hour now, and just wanted to see if there's anything else you'd like to go into or talk about that we haven't touched on, that's on your checklist, and or whatever's on your mind, because I mean, this is pretty open-ended.
Yeah,
I feel like we've done pretty good, but also not putting a cap on it if you have more you want to say.
No, I think I just want to say that I want to thank you for this opportunity, because speaking more about this, and especially in this forum, is extremely helpful for me, for my, you know, from what my goal is for this topic and for this talk, is to be able to engage in this type of conversation, and just to continually learn more. And truth be told, I've had butterflies in my stomach the entire hour because of but I just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity.
Well, no, I think just your vulnerability and openness in terms of all of this, and your poise, and just, I mean, the thinking you've given to all of this. I'm looking forward to seeing that TED Talk. Like, it should be interesting. So, you know, you've provided an honest voice that some are going to agree with or disagree with, but you're just a great example of a participant in this community, and we love to showcase that, and all kinds of different points of view. So you enrich us by your presence. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I'm going to stop the broadcast now and just say, anyone, if you want to get details, check the show notes, check out Change My View. We're at CMV Podcast on Twitter. Yeah, just Aisha, thank you so much for your time, and stick with me here. We'll finish up some of the notes. Thanks for listening, everyone.